That was shit. I'm not holding back today. The Bulldogs have no excuse and no defence for that dreadful performance against the Newcastle Knights. And 24-16 loss. In this video, I'm going to show you exactly why this wasn't a one-off. The Bulldogs had this loss coming, and the damning stats behind it will tell you that the 2-1 start was simply papering over the cracks. The Bulldogs got the loss that they deserved because they have not been performing well, and their performances have finally caught up with them in terms of results. Bulldogs, despite running more meters, struggle to take any opportunity or penetrate the defensive line. But stick around to the end because I'm going to lay out exactly how the Bulldogs can fix this as soon as next Friday's Good Friday clash against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Now, if you are new, make sure you do subscribe to Larry Talks. We're on our way to 2,000 footlongs. I appreciate it. Now let's get back to the video. Alright, let's talk about the first half meltdown to start with. The Bulldogs went in at 16-0 down at half time. Dom Young scores a hat-trick. Tries came down the side where Stephen Crichton and Jacob Kiraz have been moved to on the left-hand edge. How does that even happen? You got your two most strike weapons who dominated last year, terrorizing opposition defences on the right-hand side, being shifted to the left, and now they are showing defensive frailties over on that side because Dom Young had one of his best performances. He's going to take that match ball home and he'll remember it. Tore Jacob Kiraz and Stephen Crichton's left edge apart. The Bulldogs started okay, but at 16-0 down, when the Knights had a player in the sin bin, the Bulldogs still concede. Again, how does that happen? Then, we look at the second try. Bailey Hayward falling for a really simple dummy, a line break straight through the middle of the park, and it leads to a try for Tyson Frizzell in his grandfather years to score under the post, untouched. At 16-0, just when we're starting to build a little bit of momentum in the back end of the first half, Lachlan Galvin knocks the ball on. He stands there, looking at himself at the big screen, and the very next set, the Bulldogs score through. Unacceptable. This shows a mental frailty within this team, as far as I'm concerned. The Bulldogs come renowned under Cameron Ciraldo as a strong defensive unit. Throughout 2024 and 2025, the Bulldogs have been one of, and in last year's case, the best defensive side in the NRL. Yet they're conceding 16 points, one half of rugby league, against a side that, as I mentioned earlier, is missing Kalen Ponga and Dylan Brown, two players worth nearly $3 million of the Knights' salary cap. He took out Connor Tracy and Lachlan Galvin. I'm not sure that you're going to see that level of impact. Let's talk about the spine and the creativity or lack thereof. Banged on this drum throughout the preseason, and I'm banging on the drum after round 4. The reason is obvious. Bulldogs have a really big problem here. Matt Burton made a line break and passed to Fletcher Hunt in the second half. This backs up after last week when Matt Burton made a line break and then kicked the ball on the third tackle, when he just simply could have taken the tackle if he wasn't going to make it, and we could have had 3 more tackles to get down the opposite end against the Canberra Raiders. Then in the second half, so the Bulldogs are now down at 16-0. So how does Cameron Ciraldo respond? He moves his left centre, who was a right centre, to 5'8", and he moves his 5'8" to left centre. Now, in the short term, it did pay off. Ciraldo was looking for answers, and he said as much in his press conference. It fruit some success. Biden gets a good ball out. Matt Burton scores, playing in the centre position. Not then long after, the Bulldogs start to drive a bit of a comeback. They get a little bit more ball. They get up the field. Matt Burton, dummy, scores in the 5'8" position. Great work, Matt Burton. Obviously, not going to criticise him there. Then the momentum goes again. The Bulldogs lose their way once again. A bit of momentum, and once again, Lachlan Galvin drops the ball in the second half. Once again, an opportunity to go through the hands, an ambitious Hollywood ball, and Dom Young runs the field. And then it's game over for the Bulldogs. Let me make this comment about Cameron Ciraldo, and I want to start this by saying I think Cameron Ciraldo is a brilliant coach. I think he can take the Bulldogs to premiership success. Now that I've given that wrap up in golden paper, I do need to be a little bit critical. I'm sure everyone watching this video would agree that Stephen Crichton is in your best centre of the world conversation. And I'm saying conversation because maybe you think someone else is better. I personally don't, but that's a conversation for another day. If we've determined that Stephen Crichton is the game's best centre, after playing his best football at right centre, why on earth would you move him to left centre? I just can't understand it. And then on top of that, Ciraldo comes out in the press conference, questioned around making some tactical changes in the second half, namely allowing Stephen Crichton to play 5'8" with the ball in the Knights' attacking end. And he was then asked, is that part of the reason why Stephen Crichton was moved to left centre? Cameron Ciraldo said, one of the reasons, yes. I'm going to make this point. Would you ever see Cameron Munster, Daly Cherry Evans, Nathan Cleary, Mitchell Moses, would any of these players be moved to a different position during a game? Someone answer me that. I'm going to tell you the answer. The answer is no. And you know why? Because elite players don't get moved. They own their position and they perform there week in and week out. If Matt Burton needs to be moved, then Matt Burton is not your first choice half in this team. Simple as. As far as I'm concerned, you're trying to shoehorn someone in because you like him. That's the wrong thing to do. Now, I like Matt Burton. I think Matt Burton is a very talented player. I actually think that the Bulldogs signing of Lachlan Galvin has upset the balance of the halves and upset the balance of the whole team. It's not to say that one player is better or worse, but if you're going to have a running 5'8" like Matt Burton, you need an extremely creative halfback. For the historic Bulldogs, let's think of Brent Sherwin and Braithen Astor. Braithen Astor was a runner first. He did have some creativity. I'd say he was probably a bit more of a creative player than Matt Burton is, but predominantly a runner first was Braithen Astor. Someone also renowned for a big boot. Brent Sherwin was a creative genius. Brent Sherwin could put grubbers when you don't expect them. He could get the curve, he could maneuver the ball into a position he wanted. He had a brilliant cutout pass in him. He had a chip and chase. Brent Sherwin was the creative master for the Bulldogs, which allowed Braithen Astor to be a dominant runner. There's no issue with having someone like Matt Burton as a 5'8", but if your halfback is also not that creative, then it does create a big problem. Lachlan Galvin is really struggling to take control of this team. He might learn to be a halfback in the future, but he is not going to learn to be a halfback throughout this season. I'll promise you that from now. The Bulldogs ran more meters than the Newcastle Knights, so there was definitely an opportunity to win this game. They definitely made the meters, they did the hard yards. But then there's just a mental frailty. There was no support play. There was no defensive urgency. I can't tell you the last time I saw the Bulldogs concede a try under the try post. There was just a lack of cohesion and creativity in the attacking third. That theme around the creativity has been there already throughout the 3 games that the Bulldogs have played this season. Lachlan Galvin ran the ball more than any other player on the field. 28 runs for over 200 metres. If Lachlan Galvin was a prop, I would be sitting here, putting on golden gloves and giving him a round of applause for about 230 minutes for every metre that he made. But guess what? Lachlan Galvin's not a forward. Lachlan Galvin's meant to be the halfback of the team, earning nearly $1 million a year to run the squad, but he can't do it. He's more concerned with looking at his face on the big screen when he drops the ball so he can get a nice picture up for Tinder. Bailey Hayward, 22 runs for 125 metres, 0 try assists. Lachlan Galvin, 0 try assists, 0 line break assists. Matt Burton, line break, 2 tries, 0 try assists. This team lacks creativity. Connor Tracy works hard. I'm going to give Connor Tracy a pass. Again, another player who's not a natural playmaker. I can't criticise Connor Tracy. He works hard. He was probably the Bulldogs' best player. He was bouncing all over the place. Lots of tackle busts. Over 200 metres. Ran for the pass that leads to Dom Young going down the other end. But hey, that's just part of it. Who in this team is capable of throwing a cutout pass? Who in this team is capable of throwing a 30-metre pass left to right or right to left or doing anything near that we saw from Katoa the other week or what we saw from Daniel Atkinson the week before against the Melbourne Storm? We don't have a player who is capable of throwing a spiral pass. Our spine players lack creativity. Cameron Ciraldo, you need to hold people responsible. After this loss, the Bulldogs simply cannot choose the same players again against the South Sydney Rabbitohs and expect something different. It's time to change. And this is what I think Cameron Ciraldo needs to do as soon as next Friday against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. The Bulldogs go behind. I don't trust that they can make a comeback anymore. They need to make sure that they're selecting the right players. And here's what I think Cameron Ciraldo needs to do. Sean O'Sullivan, when he came on as an additional half, as a lock forward, he tried to direct the play. It might not show in terms of the statistics, but if you're at the game, Sean O'Sullivan was telling players where to be, trying to get players in a position. He straightens up the Bulldogs' attack. Under Lachlan Galvin, the Bulldogs are playing far too side to side. They go from left to right and right to left. There is no player making the hard line run. There's no one making the outside in run. There's no inside option. The Bulldogs are just going sideline to sideline. They're penetrating nothing. They're confusing nobody. They're really struggling to throw questions at the attack. Should be named in the number 7 shirt against the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Player halfback at halfback. Watch this team improve. I'm telling you now. Sean O'Sullivan doesn't need to be Jonathan Thurston. Just needs to be able to tell players where they need to be, kick strong, chase hard. Players with individual brilliance do their thing. Get the ball in their hands so that the Bulldogs' attack can flourish. Matt Burton scored 2 tries in this game, but he scored 2 tries running. So I'm moving Matt Burton to centre. Move Matt Burton to centre, allow him to do what he does best, which is run. I have to admit, I'm not really a big fan of this. I would rather have Bronson Xerri in the team, if I'm being honest, because I think Bronson Xerri is a better left centre than Matt Burton is. But that's the way that Cameron Ciraldo has gone. He's clearly not going to drop Matt Burton, so I'm proposing move Matt Burton to centre. Play to his strength, allow him to run, take away the playmaking responsibilities from him. If you still need to give him a boot, he can do that from left centre. That's not a problem. Move Stephen Crichton and Jacob Kiraz back to the right-hand side, where they belong. One player became known as the best centre in the world, and the other one was brought into a State of Origin squad playing on the right-hand side. Don't break something that's not broken. Move these 2 players back to the right-hand side because the right side attack is just not working. There are other reasons why the attack has its issues, obviously outside of Stephen Crichton and Kiraz being on the left-hand side, but I just think that you're taking it away from both players. Stephen Crichton is a better right centre. He's more dangerous in one-on-one situations out there. Jacob Kiraz, while playing as a winger, he does like to hold the ball in his right hand. As a left winger, I don't think that that's optimal. So just get both of these players back over to the right-hand side, please. No more soft decisions under fatigue. If you need to move your centre to 5'8" during the game, then something's broken. That's not the play. Yes, it got us some short-term results, but we shouldn't have put ourselves in that position to begin with. If you need to move your centre to 5'8", then that tells you all you need to know about your half situation. You don't trust them to be creative enough, and that in itself is a huge problem. That's 3 wins out of 4 for Newcastle. Really positive start. I don't think anyone would have predicted that to start the season. Anyway, there you have it. There's my little rant on the Bulldogs. I feel better. I hope that was a nice therapeutic session if you are a Bulldogs fan. But I think there's some valid points being made there. Do you agree with me? If you don't, what would you do to fix the Bulldogs' attack? Enjoy the rest of your weekend of rugby league and get out of here.